Welcome to the Explainer. When you think about any massive software project, there's often one single role that can make the difference between a system that lasts for years and one that becomes a crumbling digital skyscraper. So today, we're going to dive into the system architect, the master planner at the very heart of the scaled agile framework. This quote from computer scientist Manny Lehman, it just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures a fundamental truth about software. See, systems aren't static things you just build once. They're alive. And if you don't constantly care for them and adapt them, they start to decay. They get rigid, they get slow, and eventually they're just obsolete. And that is the core problem modern software development has to solve. Right. So if a system is basically destined to get worse without constant attention, who's in charge of that? Who is the guardian of that change? Who makes sure the technical foundation we're building is strong enough, not just for the features we want today, but for all the unknown challenges of tomorrow? Well, that brings us to our central figure. Okay, let's start with the basics. The system architect is that crucial link. They don't just live in a world of code and diagrams. Note, they operate right at the intersection of what's technically possible and what the business actually needs, making sure all that brilliant engineering serves a real-world purpose. So here's the official definition from the Scaled Agile Framework. Now, the key words here are shared technical and architectural vision. Now, this isn't about one person dictating a grand plan from some ivory tower. Not at all. It's about creating a common understanding that gets dozens, maybe even hundreds of engineers on the same page, all working together inside something called an ART. And just so we're all clear, an Agile Release Train, or ART, is pretty much a team of teams. They're all synchronized, all aligned, and they're all focused on delivering value together. You can think of it as the engine that lets a big company build and release complex stuff efficiently. And the system architect, well, they're one of the key leaders on that train. But here's what's really important. The architect is not a lone wolf. They're a central hub of collaboration. They're constantly in conversation with product management about what should be built, with the release train engineer about how to deliver it, and with the business owners about why it even matters. They make sure the ART's work fits into the company's bigger picture. And for really complex systems, the architect might actually be a whole team of specialists for things like security or data. So, what does a system architect actually do all day? Well, their work really boils down to 5 core responsibilities. And you can think of this as their blueprint for guiding the entire Agile release train to success. And this is that blueprint. Notice the flow here. It starts with business goals, then defines a technical vision, and from there, it's all about a continuous cycle, evolving the design with the teams, baking quality in from the start, and making sure delivery is smooth. This isn't a one-and-done job. It's a living, breathing life cycle. Let's zoom in on a few of these to see how they actually work. All right, let's move from the what to the how. How do these big responsibilities actually play out in the real world day to day? We have to start with the most important one. Look, if the architecture isn't helping to deliver business value, then it's just a technical exercise. What's the point? The architect's #1 job is to make sure every single technical decision serves a real business purpose. And here's how they do it. They champion that essential but often invisible work, the stuff they call enablers, that pave the way for future features. They're right there in the room when the product roadmap is being built, serving as a critical reality check. And, maybe most importantly, they fight to make sure the team has time to do this stuff, ensuring that critical work on performance and security doesn't get pushed aside for the next shiny feature. Let's quickly define that term, NFRs, because it's absolutely vital. So while a feature might be add a buy button, the NFRs are things like the page has to load in under 1 second, or the transaction must be totally secure. NFRs are all those qualities that make a product feel solid, trustworthy, and usable, and the architect is their champion. Okay, let's jump to another key area, evolving the design. Now, pay close attention to that word, evolving. It's not about creating a perfect fixed design from day one. And this is a huge shift from how things used to be done. This contrast right here is everything. The old way was like building with a rigid, concrete blueprint, where you had to predict the future perfectly from the very start. The modern architect champions a different approach. They start with a clear vision, sure, but they build a system that's meant to adapt as the teams learn more. It's all about designing for change, not resisting it. And that leads us directly to quality. The architect knows you can't just bolt quality on at the end of a project. It doesn't work. It has to be woven into the very fabric of the system, right from day one. So how do they actually build that quality in? Well, you can think of the architect as the head gardener for the entire code base. They push for designs where all the different parts are loosely connected, so you can change one thing without breaking everything else. They set standards and encourage refactoring, which is like the constant weeding and pruning that keeps the code healthy and manageable for years to come. So let's bring this all together. Why is this role so indispensable in today's world of large-scale development? What's the real impact of a great system architect? Well, here's what it all boils down to. By bridging that gap between what the business wants and what's technically possible, and by championing a system that's built for change, the architect literally future-proofs the product. They make sure the massive investment the company is making today doesn't become a technical debt nightmare tomorrow. Ultimately, this is the real essence of the role. They are the guardians. They hold that long-term technical vision, protecting the system's health and, most importantly, its ability to evolve. And in the end, that is the ultimate key to success. And that leaves us with one final thought. As AI starts writing more and more of our code, and as we build systems faster than ever before, does the need for a human with a clear, coherent, and forward-thinking architectural vision become even more critical? Something to think about. Thanks for joining this explainer.